We're going to be concluding the week of Yesod, and we already concluded 5 weeks. So this will be the 6th week that we are concluding. And by now, if you're following the series, then you're probably familiar with the attribute of Malchut of the Sphira. So the completion of the week of Yesod will be Malchut of Yesod. And it kind of repeats itself in the same way throughout the past weeks, what we did, Malchut of Hod and Malchut of Netzach and so forth. So there is a saying that En Melech Velo Malka, cannot be a king without a queen. And the queen is designing the correct and rectified image of the king. Okay, I'll say it again. The queen is the one who will design, so to say, the real rectified or the fixed or the what's called the Dmut Metukenet, how it's supposed to be, of the king. Now, in terms of Kabbalah, the Sphira of Yesod is a man, what's called a male. And in Kabbalah, the Sphira of Malchut is the woman, what's called a Nekeva. There's a Zachar and Nekeva, there's a female and a male. And when you put them together, the Malchut Sheba Yesod, then that's the recognition of man over the virtue of the woman. So Dafka Malchut Sheba Yesod is a more appropriate Sphira for men to really focus on. But again, putting Malchut Sheba Yesod together, it's when the man needs to recognize and to see that the woman is greater. And not only that, her level. And that's in most cases, most men fail to do. Now, in general, this is not a big secret. Women and men are completely different, but they complete each other. If all the planet was just one gender, then it wouldn't work well. You need 2 genders because one needs the other. No question, the completely two different type of species. But nevertheless, without each other, they can't function the right way. They complete each other. A smart person understands that my other half completes me. Most people don't understand that. So exactly like when Chava was created, Hashem says, Lo tov al ha'adam liot levado. Hashem told, it's not good for a man to be by himself. Evra lo ezer kenegdo. I will create for him a helpmate. But in Hebrew, it's a little bit more profound because it says ezer. Ezer is a helpmate. Kenegdo can be translated in front of him, and kenegdo can also be translated as against him. Now, why does it says in front of him? Because we learned that a few times in the Zohar that Adam and Chava were created together. The front face was Adam and the back was Chava. He created a man and woman in the same body. If you remember, we learned also the Zohar said that she was on the side. She wasn't really in the back. So when he separated them, so he said kenegdo, in front of him. Instead of in him, now she was in front. So smart people understand that my other half is to complete me. If I'm without a other half, that's what the Zohar says, a person who's not married, pal gagufa, it's half a person. So a person who didn't get married yet is like a half a person. You didn't even reach to your half of your potential. So if more people will understand that my other half is actually my completion, I'm actually not complete with that other half, then maybe relationships would look a little bit different. But nevertheless, when you're looking at the relationship between a husband and a wife, that's what you will see if you would ask most people. They'll tell you, the man is the strong one. The man is the one who goes to work, and he's the provider. And if it's 500 years ago, he would be the one who goes to hunt. He's the protector. He's the giver. He's the head of the house. And again, I'm not expressing an opinion. I'm just saying what most people, how they would look at it. And then on the other hand, what would you say about the woman? Well, the woman, she's more quiet, she's softer, she's weaker physically, she's not the one who's running outside in the world, she's with the kids, she's in the house, she's more quiet, more humble. That's in general how you would look at it. I know many women are the ones who are the breadwinners and they go out, and I'm not trying to make any definition. I'm trying to say in a very broad way, how does it really look? But nevertheless, our sages go against this theory and they say, Hakol min haisha, everything comes from the woman, nothing comes from the man. So I know for many men it's a challenge, but nevertheless, our sages, they know what they're talking about, and they say, Hakol min haisha, everything comes from the woman. Now, since we were talking most of the week about relationships, specifically in marriage, so when a couple gets married, they're called Chatan v'Kala. Chatan v'Kala, I'm sure you heard it not once or twice, especially when you go to observant weddings, that Chatan v'Kala is like a king and a queen. The whole first week, they do a Sheva Brachot, and the Chatan is the Chatan Domeh LeMelech, and resembles a king. Nevertheless, the Chatan and the Kala, the bride and the groom, are compared to a king and a queen. What's very interesting, if you look at the word Kala, has all the letters in Malka. Malka is the queen, and Kala is the bride. The queen just has the mem, but it's the same letters. Doesn't work for the man. That's already coming to show to you that who's the real queen is the Kala, not the Chatan. Chatan is Chet Taf Nun. It's not even one letter in Melech. Melech is Mem Lamed and Chaf. So who's really the queen? The Kala. So, and again, Malka, you write Mem Lamed Kaf Hey, and Kala is Kaf Lamed Hey. Same letters, just the Mem for the Malka. Now, above the king, what do you usually have? You have a crown. But the Malchut is called Keter Malchut, is the crown of the Malchut. So really, the bride is the crown. Not the Melech might be the king, but the crown, which is the important part, is the Malka. Why the crown is more important than the king? Because in most cases, when the king dies, he leaves over, how do you say, heir? So, who brings the heir to the world? The king, the queen, not the king. The queen gives birth to the next king. And not only that, the king can die, the crown goes to the next king. So really the crown is more important than the king itself. Okay, I'm talking now in broad terms. Don't go into details now. Oh, now a piece of metal is more important than the man. I'm just saying that if you try to look at it more in the Kabbalistic approach, the crown is above the king. The crown is what will sustain. The king is beneath. So in a relationship of a man and a woman, the queen, the crown, is above the man, above the king. Now, like I said already, this is more a class that men need to listen, not women. But also women need to listen to that so they know how to explain it to their men, or just to share with them the link. But nevertheless, before we talked about good communication, so the queen also needs to know how to communicate. But nevertheless, when we want to conclude the Malchut of Yesod, then Malchut of Yesod is the crown. I mean, we spoke about that Yesod is representing the relationships, is the connection. So Malchut is the crown that goes over this communication, relationship. Now, practically saying, is that this is, again, like I mentioned already twice, it's more of a practical exercise for men. Women less need to do a tikkun in Malchut of Yesod. But men, when they approach it, then what they need to do is to imagine a crown over their wife's head. And if it's a young man that doesn't have a wife yet, then he has to imagine it on his mother, because she's at this point the queen for him. And then he gets married, davak ve'ishto, and he goes with his wife. But nevertheless, the tikkun here, for both sides, is to understand that in a relationship, it's the queen that is more important, because the queen is the one that goes above the king. In the relationship for a man, then the man needs to see where he needs to be humbled from here. That yes, I might be physically stronger, or I might be the one who goes and work and I'm the breadwinner, or whatever it is, however you want to look at it. But nevertheless, as our sages say, Akol ba min haisha. for many men, that I can speak as a man, for many men, they still didn't get to that level, to understand that the wife is above them. Maybe because society is trying to distort it and show that a man is more dominating and more stronger and more powerful. But the reality is that many, many men didn't get to the level to understand that it's the wife that is the queen. And the queen is more important than the king. Even in the wildlife, you see that in many types of animals, it's all about the queen. It's not about the king. So, and again, everything, I'm sure many can say, yeah, but in this group of animals, the male is the dominating one. You're right. But in many species, you see that it's all about the queen. So, excuse me? In chess, yeah? She does everything. In chess, she can go all over the place. The king is very limited, can only go one step and he has to rest. Now he has to take his Schlafstunde. So his rest, you're right. In the chess, the queen is the one who runs all over the place. Sometimes you can win the entire game just with one soldier, with the queen. The point we want to take from that is for the men who listen that they have to understand the importance in the relationship. And the majority of the tikkun here is for men. So a smart woman, you know, our sages, there's a saying in Chazal, says, "Eze isha kshera osa et retzon ba'ala." Who's a smart woman who does the will of her husband. Now this sounds very derogatory. Who's a smart woman does the will of her husband. But nevertheless, why it says a smart woman? Because she knows how to, so to say, I don't want to use the word manipulate, because manipulating is a negative word, but a smart woman knows how to bring the ratzon, the will of her husband, so it will come out the right way. So, nevertheless, for men it's important to know that the queen is the crown. And for the women, since we spoke yesterday about the communicating, is to know how to communicate with the husband to bring him to understand that the queen is the one that is above. That's the crown of the Yesod, the Malchut of the Yesod, the crown that goes above the relationship, above the connection. First tikkun here, of course, is to be humble and to minimize yourself. But it's also important, I would say, that the tikkun, the female part of the tikkun here is, a person is great when he knows who they are. One of the reasons why Moshe Rabbeinu was so great, because he knew exactly who he is. He didn't have issues with knowing who he is. On one way, he didn't have an ego that he's Moshe Rabbeinu. And if you give this position to most people, their ego will go completely out of control. Can you imagine being a Moshe Rabbeinu? So in one way, he didn't have an ego. But on the other side, he knew exactly who he was. When he looked in the mirror, he, I'm sure, had a little smile and said, I'm Moshe Rabbeinu. You can imagine, I am Moshe Rabbeinu. So he knew exactly who it is. So when do you become great? Because that you know who you are. That you know your power. You know your virtues. You know your advantages. You know your weaknesses. But especially when you know how good you are, how do you become successful? That it doesn't go up to your head in a negative way, in an ego, that, I am the number one. So on the female part of the tikkun is to understand, so I'm the queen, but so what? It doesn't mean that I have to now brush off everything in my way. But to conclude the week of Yesod, which is a very important week of communicating and building relationships and stronger relationships. So we concluded by, how do you build a good relationship when you know who's above you and you know who's below you, and not in a way that you use it to hurt another person. Some people, they know they're above another person and they use that to hurt the other person or to take advantage. So specifically, when you want to do a tikkun in a relationship, is to know where your level is. I know I'm above you, or I know I'm below you, but I'm not doing anything with it to chas v'shalom sabotage the relationship or to take advantage of another person.